So when we have these conversations, of course, we need to set the groundwork. We need to acknowledge the history of these movements, history of these struggles, be able to identify exactly who we need to be calling to attention to for perpetuating these systems of oppression. But we also need to address some of the sort of more common hangups that people have. Some people who may not be as familiar with either the Black liberation struggle or or the struggle for liberation of Palestine or liberation, on an international scale. And one of the main, so I'll just go. I'll use that to go into the is our fourth question here. So when people disregard the importance of global solidarity with Palestinians with such phrases as "their fight is not our fight," what are some appropriate responses we can offer to them? We should offer to them.
Yeah, I mean, I won't talk too long because I feel like we kind of answered that. Um, you know, this sister was talking about the blows against imperialism, and how we want to weaken imperialism. But when oppressed people come together against a common enemy, we can win, and that's the only way we can win. That's the only way that we can fight. Um, that we can fight racism and imperialism is with solidarity, and we want to win. So we're gonna do it together.
Um, but yeah, I think I want to go back to the point of like when we fight, we win. I think one of the most like important fights for Palestinians like here in the U.S. Happened a little bit ago through if you've ever heard of Rasmia Oda. Yep. So she was a member of the Arab American Action Network in Chicago, which has been around for over 2 decades now, and is a pillar in the Arab community over there. And she herself was a Palestinian who had to leave Palestine after she was wrongfully uh, uh, imprisoned by the Israeli occupation forces, and was sentenced for 10 years in jail, and wrongfully so. And they tortured her and tortured a confession out of her. And when she came to the U.S., they asked her questions about, if through like immigration processes. And because of her Palestine solidarity work, about a decade later, maybe actually I think it was 15 decades later or 15 years later, after she moved to the U.S., they saw that what she was doing was actually picking up steam, and the work that she was doing in her community was changing the community for the better, and they did not like that. So they brought immigration after her and said that because she had quote unquote lied on her immigration, saying that she had never been arrested before, when she was wrongfully arrested, wrongfully convicted, wrongfully jailed, tortured, and one of the first women to ever go on record at a UN assembly to say that she had been a victim of sexual violence from the occupation. And they still were trying to charge her with 10 years in prison and deportation. But because the community fought for her so vigilantly, they were out there on the streets. You see the videos now. You hear the people talk about what importance that she had. And this was during the time of Trump and the Muslim ban, and there was a lot happening. And so they knew that any trial that they would get was not a fair trial. But at the end of the day, she did not go to jail because of those false crimes. She was deported to a country that she hadn't been to in 3 decades, with no family over there. And that's not to say that this is a loss, but she's not in jail. And I think that's such a big win, because they were trying to jail her. And she's an older woman now. She's in her 70s. That would have been a life sentence. And because the community fought for her side by side, she's able to live out the rest of her life. And this is the same tactics that the U.S. has always used, the same tactics that have always been talked about. And the work that she was doing with the Arab American Action Network was trying to get the FBI to stop using a program called SARS. I don't remember the acronym, but it targets Muslim and Arab Americans unfairly. And, you know, we see where the FBI repression can do for a lot of activists, where they end up. Yeah.
So everything y'all said, and plus when I first heard this question, I guess my thought also goes to like this idea that we have a moral obligation as people living, in the belly of the beast, right? We understand that Israel and its existence and what it does, it cannot be possible without the material, diplomatic, and military support that it receives from this country, right? So if it becomes a moral obligation on us to fight back. It's not an over there issue. It's very much an over here issue. And another thing we understand, and we talk about this when we brushed on internationalism, but really two things can't be true at the same time when it comes to, the US will never be, benevolent here and violent over there, right? So with that understanding, like we have it comes to the natural conclusion that the fight is not two fights, one here and one in Palestine. It's the same exact fight. And just one more time on the moral obligation point, the U.S. gives Israel $3.8 billion every year. In the past few months, an additional, $14 billion has been sent to Israel. We sell them all the weapons, right? We allow for the weapons manufacturers to thrive in the U.S. that gives Israel weapons. It really becomes our duty, our obligation to stand up and fight against this. There's no other way really to frame it.
Yeah, through any sort of revolutionary movements or fights for independence that we've seen in the past, uh, we're talking about the sort of idea in the U.S. that many of our greater leaders in the past have sort of led with as part of their political advocacy is to acknowledge these independence movements for what they are and to offer them unconditional support in their struggles against these imperialist occupying forces because they understood exactly that what is going on over there is not too dissimilar from what's been going on right here in this country. Has been wrought against, especially black and indigenous, and as well as Asian Americans people within this country through the development of America as a colonial force in and of itself. So one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite scholars, philosophers, and revolutionary figures, Walter Rodney, is if there is to be any proving of our humanity, it must be through revolutionary means. So, thank you. Appreciate it.